It's called the halving, and it happens once roughly every 4 years. This will lower the number of new Bitcoin entering the market by half.
What's up, crypto crew, and welcome back. Or if this is your first time, I'm Captain Crypto Mite, actively escaping the matrix, scoping out the crypto ocean. So if you like your odds, get on the boat, stay up to date, thumbs up, and join the hunt. We're less than a week away from the fourth ever Bitcoin halving event in history. As I always say on this channel, study the market, because although the halving is a significant moment for anyone on the crypto ocean, including you, crypto crew, you have to increase your understanding of what the Bitcoin halving is and its effect and what it means to you. Here to explain is Andreas Antonopoulos. He's the author of Mastering Bitcoin, Mastering Ethereum, and the Internet of Money series. His mission is to bring education about the Bitcoin and open blockchains to as many people as possible under free Creative Commons licenses. Andreas Antonopoulos has been in Bitcoin for over a decade and has witnessed all Bitcoin halvings so far, including the first ever halving back in 2012. Pay attention, crypto crew.
So the halving is a regularly scheduled event that happens on every 210,000 blocks of the Bitcoin blockchain. Every 210,000 blocks, something changes. And what changes is the block subsidy, which is part of the reward that miners earn by mining a block of Bitcoin. The block subsidy is reduced by half. So on Genesis, when Satoshi launched the network, every block included 50 new Bitcoin, 50 newly minted Bitcoin as part of the reward. So every block mined, the miner who mined it would earn 50 Bitcoin. 210,000 blocks, or about 4 years after that, in 2012, the first halving occurred, and the block reward was reduced to 25 Bitcoin. And that was my first halving. So I was around for the first one. 4 years later, in 2016, the block halving happened again at the 420,000th block. And the reward went from 25 Bitcoin to 12.5 Bitcoin. And then after that, in 2020, it went down to 6.25. And in 5 days, 10 hours, 26 minutes-ish, it will go from 6.25 to 3.125, or 3.125 Bitcoin.
I don't have a pen.
Exactly. Supply and demand, my friend.
You know what I'm saying? He's creating urgency. People getting to want to buy the stock. Convince them it's something that they need.
All right, let's dispel some myths, look at some of the questions that arise around this time, and talk about some of the most common concerns that people have around this special time. So first of all, we say, for simplicity, that the reward will be 3.125, or 3.125 Bitcoin. But of course, on the system, in the software, in the blockchain, Bitcoin does not exist as a unit of measurement. What is measured instead is Satoshis. So in fact, the reward will be 312,500,000 Satoshis. That's the new block reward, because every Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis, and Satoshis are the only thing that exists. So values in Bitcoin in the system are recorded in integer Satoshis. We use the Bitcoin metric or unit for convenience, and of course that forces us to put a decimal point and several digits after the decimal points in order to get any kind of accuracy. But in the system, we only measure Satoshis. What happens during the halving is not a division, not in the traditional sense. It's a binary division, which happens by shifting the binary digits to the right. So if you take a binary number and you shift it right, what happens is it divides it by 2. So for example, the binary number, the decimal number 2 in binary is 10. If you shift that right, it becomes 01. So shifting right in binary is how we do the division. And here's an interesting bit of historic trivia from the Bitcoin system, because Satoshi wrote this equation to simply shift right. What happens is after 64 halvings, the number shifts right, and it goes from 1 Satoshi. And then in binary, if you shift right and there's only 1 digit, what it does is it wraps around to the maximum number you can encode as a binary number. So the 1 ends up going to the other side, to the left, which, if you have perhaps already figured it out, means that based on the original implementation of the formula that exists in the Bitcoin network, in the last halving, the reward would go from 1 Satoshi to, I believe it would have been 6 billion Satoshi as the reward of the very next block, which is not desirable, not desirable. Some might even call that a bug.
Prime laps with your 4 wins.
Now, another strange thing happens during the halving, and that is a flurry of speculation, especially among media that is not Bitcoin savvy, about what the impact of the halving will be on the price, on the health of the network, et cetera, et cetera. And we see this frenzy of media speculation repeat every 4 years, and every 4 years is the exact same story. The first and most common story we hear is known as the death spiral. So basically, the story goes like this. When the halving happens and the reward per block is reduced by half, miners will find that they are suddenly unprofitable based on the current price of Bitcoin and the amount of energy they use to mine and the current difficulty. All of those are parameters that go into whether they're profitable or not. When they discover they're unprofitable, they're going to go, oh, well, that was fun. I guess 14 years is enough. And then they will turn off their miners and stop mining. And all of them will do this simultaneously. And the result will be that there won't be another block because the difficulty will be too high. There won't be enough miners. The hash rate will drop. It will take too long to mine the next block, which will reduce the profitability for more miners who will then turn off, which will reduce the profitability for more miners who will turn off, because we're never getting to a difficulty adjustment. I have to mine 2016 blocks to get to a difficulty adjustment. And if miners are dropping like flies, we never even get to the next block, let alone 2016 blocks, to actually get the difficulty to retarget. And so as a result, the network grinds to a halt. And this is described as Bitcoin's death spiral. Has been predicted every 4 years before the halving. People write articles all about this. It's a very exciting story, right? It's a very clickbaity story. Here's why Bitcoin will crash on April 19th.
Get some Bitcoins.
Now, the reason why this story doesn't make sense is because miners are not a monolithic block. They are experiencing a very broad variety of circumstances which will inform their decisions on profitability. So if all miners were running the same equipment with the same efficiency, buying electricity from the same electricity provider at the same price, and the Bitcoin price didn't change while the rewards dropped by half, yes, all miners would become unprofitable at the same time. And if they somehow failed to notice that this was coming. But in fact, miners have a broad variety of equipment even within a single mining farm. Between miners, there'll be different equipment with different efficiency. They buy electricity from vastly different electricity providers at vastly different prices. And so while some miners may find that some of their equipment in some of their locations has become unprofitable and turn that equipment off, not all equipment at all locations and not all miners will become unprofitable at the same time. And if you do the math, it's really simple. If half the miners disappeared, all that means is that the next block would come out in 20 minutes instead of 10. Even if half the miners turned off their equipment and the hash rate dropped by half, we would then have 20-minute blocks. And we would have 20-minute blocks for 2,000 blocks, which would mean 4 weeks. And then after 4 weeks, there'd be a difficulty retargeting. The difficulty would drop by half. And all of the miners who hung in there and kept their systems would suddenly become very profitable. There's another story that comes down to around halving, and that is a pure microeconomics story. And that pure microeconomics story looks at Bitcoin itself as a commodity that is priced based on a supply-demand curve, as if it's a consumable commodity. And that story says, well, if demand remains the same and supply is reduced by half, the price equilibrium will have to rebalance at double the price. Right. So if you have a fixed demand for a product and supply is reduced by half, then the price of that product should double in order for supply and demand to match again. That story is the overly optimistic rather than the doomsday scenario. And that story comes from a lot of people who are looking at this as an opportunity to profit. So the halving represents a giant boost in the price. That story isn't so easy to dismiss. And it's not so easy to dismiss because in the last 3 halvings, that more or less did happen. Now, it doesn't happen instantly, and it doesn't happen predictably, and it doesn't happen linearly. Instead, what happens is there's a delayed response while the market catches up to the news. And sometimes that delayed response is as big as 6 months. The supply crunch certainly puts a lot of pressure, but in many cases, all that does is suppress demand. And people are waiting. They will wait to see what's going to happen with the price. And then gradually it goes up, and usually it overshoots. So instead of doubling, it usually goes a bit higher than that. Now, that's what happened in the past. Will that happen this time? Obviously, I don't know. And anybody who tells you that they know is lying.
I lied.
But interestingly enough, things are a bit different this halving. First of all, in many of the previous halvings, just before the halving, the Bitcoin price was relatively low by historical levels. This halving, we're going into the halving. We are preceding the halving by an all-time high Bitcoin price. So rather than trailing it by 6 months, this has kind of been priced in advance by about 6 months. And that's probably because of the ETFs and nothing to do with the halving. The second thing that's different is we're going in at an all-time high hash rate, again, preceding the event. And we're going in with institutional investors. So all of those things are new, and who knows what happens next. So that's the story of the halving. And now we wait. I have a prediction to make. What is going to happen in 5 days? And the answer is really nothing, because usually at the moment of the halving, nothing really changes except for the block subsidy. Nobody starts turning off mining machines. Nobody dives into the markets and starts buying at that specific block to catch the wave. In fact, every time we've seen it, everybody just holds their breath for a day or two to see how things are going to play out. And so my prediction, 5 days, 10 hours from now, nothing's going to happen other than block 840,001 is going to come out. And if you look in the Coinbase of that block, you will see that the reward is 3.125 Bitcoin.
Go check out Andreas Antonopoulos. This is his YouTube channel. There's a lot of gems of wisdom that you can learn from this man who has been in Bitcoin before many, if not all of us watching this video right now were. Whatever people are telling you, you always need to have discernment. That discernment that comes from the Most High, that will offer you that wisdom to make better choices. And what better way to manifest those choices in your future wealth. And with that said, let's continue to escape the matrix. Let's continue to keep our eyes on the Bitcoin halving event, eyes on the coming bull run, or if that postpones, eyes on the entire crypto market. Grow in grace, and let's make some crypto waves. Say I.